What's that? Good. How you doing? And I thought you said young. Guys, for practice today, limited will be Bosa, his ankle, Pettis, groin, Richburg knee, Verrett ankle, K1 knee. We'll be giving Staley a vet day, and Hurd and Trent Taylor aren't practicing.
What's the latest with Hurd's back?
Most likely not going to play this week. Haven't ruled him out yet, but if I had to say something today, he's doubtful.
In the game, you still didn't think, last week you didn't think it was a long-term deal, or you still
Yeah.
thinking the same?
I'm thinking it's more week to week as opposed to day to day.
You guys said back tightness initially. Has it turned into anything more serious the further you've looked at it?
No, that's the furthest I've gone with it.
How do you expect to rotate those wide receivers, or do you expect to just go with a couple, or what's your kind of view as you open the season?
No, that's going to be interesting as we go through each game. You know, a lot will do with how they practice in these three practices, what routes we have on, what personnel we have on. A lot goes into blocking, running routes the right way. That's something that isn't set and depends on the play called and the personnel in.
So do you consider yourself having two wide receivers on base downs?
I consider everyone who'll be up will play.
Week one's kind of always a crapshoot, it feels like, to get a feel. Now that you've had a couple of years under your belt, what are you kind of expecting as you approach this one?
About the same. I mean, you got a pretty good idea on your own team. Still working through some things, like with the last question, but you got a pretty good idea of what to expect with your own players. You really never know what to expect on the other side, especially when it's a new staff. So you try not to overthink things too much. I mean, you'll look at everything, and you got every idea in your head, but you don't know until you see their team. So you're ready for whatever. You got a plan going into it, but you got to be ready to adjust throughout the game.
When you look at the big picture, Kyle, what's going to make the offense successful with Jimmy coming back this year?
I mean, I think the first thing we got to do is not turn the ball over. I mean, if we don't turn the ball over, I think we'll have a chance to win every game we're in. And I definitely plan on us getting more turnovers on defense this year. So I think that'd be the most important thing for us to get more wins than we have these last 2 years. And after that, it's just all 11 guys executing, not just Jimmy, but the other 10 guys on the field, doing their assignments, staying ahead of the chains, not having pre-snap penalties, and just not trying to have those setbacks.
Where do you think Jimmy is mentally after going through the long rehab process, the long preseason, heading into this year, just knowing the mental hurdles that await?
I think he's as far as long as he can be. I mean, I think that's a challenge for everyone. I mean, no one gets to play a lot in the preseason, especially quarterbacks. You get hit. I think he got hit a couple times, but not too much. But it's the same for everyone coming back from an ACL. You know, they go through the whole preparation of getting their body ready, trying to get their mind ready, which they're always as ready for as they can be, but they got to go out there and go through it. You hope it happens in the first quarter, the first game, but that usually takes a little bit of time.
Well, what kind of feel do you have for where Jimmy's at right now? Because it seems like, I mean, outside of this building, people's opinions waffle from he's going to be the guy who was 2017 to we really have no idea.
Yeah, I mean, I know Jimmy can play. I can't tell you exactly how he's going to play every single play or every single game. I know Jimmy's going to have some ups and downs, but I don't sit there and try to make a different decision based off of one practice or one preseason game and then flip the next game. Jimmy's working his way back. He's ready to go. He's as far as long as he can be. I know he's confident, excited for the season, but we need Sunday to come, not just for him, but for all of us. We've all been itching for this game since the season ended last year. And when you're coming back from an injury, I think that's even heightened for those type of players.
Talking about Tampa Bay, is there a specific aspect of the game you guys have to absolutely dominate to get the win on Sunday?
I mean, that's pretty much what I said earlier, and they'll probably would be the same thing for everyone, but turnovers. Turnovers without a doubt, and it's even heightened when you're on the road, too.
Speaking of being on the road, what's the key to having success on the road in the NFL, especially when you have to go across the country?
I mean, I think it's a little bit different for us. I've learned that. It is different when you travel 3 time zones away, especially going from west to east. So it does help us going out a couple of days early. That's why we're going to stay out there for the following week when we go against Cincinnati. So I think that stuff can help you, but you win or lose based off how good you play. So you got to be prepared. You got to play good football. You can't turn it over. You got to be detailed and execute. You can have excuses when you go on the road. Crowd noise and stuff like that, to me, is always the biggest factor because it's tough when you can't hear. And it's a huge advantage for a defensive line to jump the cadence, too. So that can work both ways. But, crowd noise is always the biggest difference to me. That's why I've always felt that's a little bit different in hockey or baseball or basketball. Like, I don't know how much those guys have to communicate, and stuff. But in football, it's very imperative.
In what ways can it benefit you to do what you're doing, staying out there for the 2 weeks?
I just going through it for 2 years, I just realized how much it takes a toll on your team, traveling from coast to coast. I've been in the NFL for a while, so I was mainly on the East Coast most of my career, so I didn't think it was as big of a deal traveling coast to coast when I was there. So, but I've noticed over 2 years it's a difference here, just the time difference. It takes a little bit of a toll on your players. So just by staying out there, it's not going to affect us much this week, but I think it'll help us be a lot better the next week because when you go there, go through the time difference, travel back, the long plane ride and everything, which everyone deals with, it makes injuries a little longer to recover from and things like that with the swelling. But when your sleep-wake cycle gets messed up, whether it's especially for athletes, but I think all people it affects.
How much of a concern is the humidity, and how do you prepare the players differently for it?
Humidity is always a concern too. I coached in Tampa when I started my career, so I know how big of an advantage that was for us early in the year. Been in a lot of humid places to begin. It is tough for guys if they're not prepared for it. Just like it can be tough going to Denver and playing in that altitude if you're not prepared for it. You got to be mindful of it. You got to make sure you don't just start hydrating when you get to Florida and realize how humid it is. That starts Monday. You got to do that for a full week, which will help. And you just hope that you're hydrated and that you're prepared the right way. And I know we have a team who has prepared the right way. I feel we're very well conditioned. We'll keep trying to stuff water down their throats for the next week. And after that, then I don't want to talk about it. It's going to be hot. It's not going to be fun. But it's hot and not fun almost everywhere right now. So let's make sure we're prepared and then go try to win a game.
You guys prepared by turning up the temperature in the weight room, is that right?
They've done that in a number of rooms, I guess. Yeah, we'll try. I think they did the weight room. I think we had a 10 outside. My office is very hot in my room for some reason. I think that's bad ventilation. But yeah, we're doing everything just to make sure guys are mindful of it, and it is a big deal. But the main thing I have, regardless, is drink water every second, please.
Briefly, but what's the challenge of trying to prepare for a defense with a new defensive coordinator in such a young defense where there's not so much NFL tape, especially in the secondary?
It happens a lot. It's going to be similar to us to next week when we go to Cincinnati too. That's why you like to get into the season because people hate watching preseason tape because a lot of times you're watching guys who aren't on the team, and a lot of people don't show a lot in the preseason. So it does get frustrating throughout the week. You can't wait till you get to about week 4, week 5, so you don't have to watch preseason games anymore and things like that. But Todd's been in this league for a long time. He's a hell of a defensive coordinator. We definitely prepare for him, but Todd's a tough guy to prepare for too. He's done about everything in his career, so we'll see what he wants to do with Tampa Bay. So we do have to be prepared for everything, but that's something that's going to take a few games for people to realize what he wants to do in Tampa.
With your running backs, how much do you go in with a plan of how you want to use Breida and Coleman, and then how much do you kind of leave it open to giving yourself the flexibility of going with the hot hand?
There's certain plays, when we do a game plan on a Monday and Tuesday where we have a specific vision of what player we want to have that play, which would be any of the 3 guys who are up. But after that, it's more who's fresh. There's not a run play that I don't mind any of them on. Most of the pass plays you can put all of them on. There's certain guys you prefer more than the other in certain plays, but we know that going in, and those are the guys I'll ask for on that play. But besides those, 5 to 10 times a game, usually closer to 5 than 10. That's just Bobby trying to keep them fresh and rotate them.
You're obviously in week-to-week mode right now, but if you look at your big picture as far as your schedule is concerned, it's almost a who's who of quarterbacks and different styles. You have 2 of the most mobile guys in the league 4 times, and then some of the best pocket passers. As you look at that, how do you have to react from week to week depending on who the quarterbacks are?
That does change. I know some of the more mobile guys come a little bit later. But that's stuff that you got to address, and it's not just being mobile, but how they use them. Do they use them completely different? And that's stuff you got to make adjustments with your scheme. That's stuff you got to be ready for. But when you look at a schedule, I've done it. I used to always look at the schedule and try to decide whether it was a tough schedule or hard or easy schedule. When I was younger, there was a couple years I'm like, hey, this is going to be an easy schedule, and it ends up being the hardest one I've ever been in by far. So then I've realized that they're all hard, and you don't know what to expect, and you don't know when it's going to come, who's going to be playing later in the year. Things change so much, who your team is, who other teams are, and teams are different every year. It's not the same as last year. So I try not to look too far down the line, but to address your question, that is always a big deal on a running quarterback versus a pocket quarterback.
You do have some of the best ones. Potential Hall of Famers if you look. You missed Brady and Rivers, about the only 2 marquee guys that you missed this year, it feels like.
Well, that's all right with me. Hopefully we see him in the last game of the year.
The Bucks are kind of in a similar position where they're getting guys from the defense back. Is that why you kind of prepare for the scheme as opposed to players? Because Vea may be coming back.
Yeah, both, and how are they going to play in the new scheme too? You know, and I've played against their linebacker a bunch, Levant, and I played against him a ton. But I know they got a new guy in who we saw a ton in college. They didn't play a lot in the preseason, so we'll see how they use them. I know they're good players, but you got to see how they're going to play in the scheme and what they're going to be like, how they're going to play in their zones, how they're going to play in their man, which takes some time. What you do know is they're good players and they're going to be coached well. So you know it's going to be a challenge.
What are the hallmarks of a Bruce Arians offense?
Bruce is aggressive. I've always loved watching Bruce since I was quality control. You know, watched him a ton when he was in Pittsburgh and followed him his whole career. So Bruce is a fun guy to watch. He's aggressive. He believes in what he does because it's pretty consistent in what he's done over the years. But he gets very creative in the pass game, and he's got a good mentality in the run game. So Bruce is always a challenge. He's not scared to air it out, put some pressure on his quarterbacks, and that's why his quarterbacks usually make a lot of plays.
What's your sense of Quan Alexander's mindset heading into this game?
I think he's fired up. I mean, he's fired up every day I've ever been around him. So I haven't seen anything different. Now that we're playing Tampa, I think it would be hard for him to be more fired up. But I'm sure he's got some big emotions going back to a place that he's got a lot of respect for and that I know he enjoyed. And I know it'll be fun for him. So I think it's a good start for him, and hopefully he'll be successful.
Who's your starting free safety?
I don't know.
What's going to determine that? Do you really
Practice. I mean, I have an idea, but today. But that could change. We got a bunch of guys who can do it, and I mean, I'm definitely not going to say that stuff. But we got definitely a few guys who are capable, and we'll see how it shakes out for Sunday.
Last one. Of course, obviously, when you're your best player, you can't be a bit, at least media-wise, underappreciated through this offseason. Has been there's boasted, here's forward, and Sherman's healthy, and all this stuff. Do you get a sense he's ever bugged by that, or is he just wired correctly?
I think he's wired correctly. I mean, Buck's one of the best players in this league. He wasn't in the top 100, so that's why I'll never watch that. I'm just joking. I've watched it before, but yeah, I mean, I think everyone knows Buck's one of the best players in this league, and hopefully this year he gets the recognition he deserves.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
What are the kind of challenges that the Buccaneers give you this?
You know, they do a couple different looks. They want to get right up in your face, you know, and then put pressure on your receivers, skill position guys overall, and just make them make plays. And so I think we'll have to handle that, and then they're very talented up front too. So, I mean, they're good defense across the board.
You obviously faced Todd Bowles' defense when you were in New England. What did you learn from that, and how much can you kind of take into this week?
Yeah, it's kind of, you look back at that film, you try not to take it all into consideration because different players, different schemes, all that stuff. But, you know, yeah, it's good to look back on that and kind of take some notes from that.
What do you think the biggest hurdle was you had to overcome just in these past, I don't know, since the injury?
Probably, I don't know. I can't think of one specifically. I think, you know, there was mental hurdles, physical hurdles that both of them, you're trying to balance them and at the same time not think about it too much because you're dealing with training camp and everything. So I wouldn't say there's one specific thing, but yeah, there's been plenty throughout all of training camp.
When was the moment that you realized, okay, I'm back now. I don't have to worry about the knee. I need to just focus on playing?
Oh, the knee? Oh, that was, I mean, back in the OTAs, I really stopped worrying about it. Yeah, just it's kind of one of those things you put out of your head. I have so many other things to worry about that you can't really be worrying about that all the time.
You talked about, you mentioned mental hurdles. Do you even know when you're going over a mental hurdle?
Not really. You kind of realize it after it's happened, I guess. Like going back to KC after I left there, it felt good. So I think those things kind of just happened on their own.
What success of the receiver group has sort of evolved over
I think those guys, they've been through a battle. Training camp was definitely a battle for those guys, putting a lot of pressure on them to, perform. Also, they're running a ton. All the yardage adds up. So those guys, they've been through a lot, and they've been doing really well. I think we got a good group of them, each kind of unique in their own way, and put them in the right spots to be successful.
Because they are unique, are you still in that process of learning, about Dante, learning about Debo? You haven't worked much with Jalen, but just all the guys, is that still a process for you?
Yeah, I think the trust process kind of never ends, especially with the quarterback and whoever the skill position is, tight end, receiver, whatever. I think it's just, once you do trust those guys and you know which routes they like, which routes they're really good at, you kind of start, favoring those.
And you do that consciously?
I think it just kind of happens naturally. You don't want to put too much thought into it and have it be fake.
So does it make you feel more comfortable knowing that you have such a strong backfield and a much better receiver corps and coming back, like being able to use them?
Oh, yeah. As a quarterback, you love that. Just having those weapons at your disposal, kind of try to get them the ball in space and let them go be playmakers.
What kind of progress has Matt Breida made in that regard, the pass catching aspect of the game?
His hands have never really been a question. It's just, he was never asked to do that in college, so it's kind of new to him. But I think he's come a long way. All those backs, they're so unique in how they run routes. Each one of them is a little different. But Matt just, he's so fast and explosive that if you could get him in space like that, it's dangerous.
Kyle said the team had to control turnovers. That's the biggest point. You have to be dominant at Tampa Bay to get the win. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, throughout this entire league, you win the turnover battle, you're usually going to have a good chance to win.
You recently said that in practice sometimes you attempt riskier throws than you would in a game just to see what you can do. Do you change your approach at all this week in practice, given that the emphasis is don't commit turnovers this week?
I mean, it's not like just this week. Every week is, but I think that, like I said before, the trust process. This is your time to do that. So if there's an opportunity to ball down the field and you give your guy a shot and he makes the play on it, you kind of just notch that in your brain for later and move on. But yeah, there's a fine line because you want to perform well, obviously, and execute the plays the right way. But you still got to know who you can trust and who you can't.
How important is Joe Staley as a leader behind the scenes, and what was the process like for you becoming a leader and sort of, I don't know if you guys ever talked about it, but what was that like with Staley?
Joe's always, he's just been naturally a leader. I think, since I've got here at least, he shows it on the field. He shows it in his work ethic. He comes in early, stays late. All the stuff that you would expect from a leader. And personally, I think I just try to come in and be myself. I think you can't fake that type of stuff, especially in a locker room with 53 guys that you're going to be with for the whole year. You don't want to do things that aren't natural. So I always just try to be myself and let those things happen.
Week one finally here. How ready are you to get past all the speculation and just get to football? And how do you tune out the noise?
Yeah, it's been a long time coming. So I'm excited to get back out there. I don't know. You can't really listen to all that stuff. We got so much going on with our stuff, mentally, physically, that you're trying to deal with all that. So it's exciting to be back.
If you forecast ahead, Jimmy, and say you guys are as successful as you want to be, what's going to be the offense's identity on why you're successful?
I think it's a couple things coming together. Obviously we would like to be able to run the ball, start with that, and I think everything starts up front. Those guys play well up front. It gives us, better opportunities on the outside to go and make plays and let the skill players do what they do.
Kyle was just talking about how hard it is to go all the way across the country. You guys have back-to-back trips. You're staying in Ohio. I don't know how many of those trips you've made, but what are the challenges as a player kind of trying to adjust with those long trips?
Like going to Tampa won't be terrible. The flight, it is what it is. But that week when we'll be in Youngstown it's different for us. Your routine's a little thrown off. You're staying in a hotel, so things change, but you kind of, you adapt on the fly, I guess. And I've done a couple of these before, especially from New England, like coming out to the West Coast. So, you just try to go back to those and see what you did.
Is that more emphasis now on like the sleep cycle and all that kind of stuff? How much do you put into that? How much value do you put into that kind of stuff?
Oh, a ton, yeah. Sleep especially. Never really thought about it until I got to the NFL, but so many people do these sleep studies and how it affects you on the field, in the classroom, walkthroughs, everything. And just, that's a crucial part to our game.
Is that one of a set routine? Like,
oh, yeah, very.
Time and all that?
Yeah. Exactly. I try for 9:30. Yeah, I try for it, yeah. During the season, it's a little tough sometimes, but, yeah, try for it.
Is that one of the things that makes it hard to win on the road? Is it just harder to stick to your routine when you're in a hotel, on the road, all those things?
Yeah, I think that's part of it. I think there's a ton of things that go into on the road. I mean, the crowd noise, obviously, you're in a different environment, whatever it may be. But I think, we have a good mentality on this team of just, it's us against everyone else there, and we know that. And so it's, I don't know, it's just kind of a mentality you have to win there.
At the beginning of training camp, everybody said that Kyle Shanahan said, really, the time is now. You guys got to start winning games. No more excuses. How much pressure do you feel around that, and how much pressure do you think there is in the locker room around that?
I think the pressure is coming from ourselves. We have a pretty high standard in that locker room, and guys hold each other accountable. And I think, this year is more evident than ever since I've been here. It's just we have the leaders, we have guys holding people accountable and taking charge, and it's trickling down. So I think it's, we're going to put more pressure on ourselves than anyone else is.
What's your approach to trying to prepare for a defense? It's mostly guys 24 and under.
Mm-hmm.
How do you try and game plan for that film-wise and try and exploit that without being too confident in that youth?
Yeah, well, I mean, you have to take that into account, but at the same time, you're going against the D coordinator, Todd Bowles, obviously, who's tremendous, and so you have to take all those things into account. We're going in there with the right mindset, I think, and like Kyle says, to dominate them.
All right, guys, thanks.
All right. Thanks, guys.